So I went to see The Secret of Marrowbone, which is a horror film written and directed by the guy who wrote The Orphanage, which I really enjoyed. The Secret of Marrowbone follows a family who have just moved to America with their sick mother, and not long after their move, some scary things happen. Sometimes when you have a movie written and directed by the same person, it can have a huge benefit on the overall cohesion of the film. In this case, I think having a different writer or director to collaborate with would have helped to weed out the weaker elements and bring the overall quality up a notch. And that's not to say the film is terrible. It does feel self-indulgent, but it still has some redeeming features. The acting was all pretty good. For the most part, they weren't required to do much besides act scared and deliver lines, but they performed their roles reasonably well with what the script had to offer them. For the most part, the film had a decent enough atmosphere, and it's set in the late 60s, which I quite enjoyed. It felt authentic enough, and it was nice that they put the effort into making it a period piece. The story was too predictable. A few story elements did surprise me, but that's because I wasn't invested enough in the story to care. If you do find yourself invested in the story, I'm sure you'll very much enjoy the film's eventual revelations as the film closes on its final act. Even more predictable than the story were the insanely predictable scares. The film literally changes when a jump scare is coming. It's all bright in the middle of a sunny day, everyone is talking and moving naturally. Then it cuts to night time. It's all dark and quiet. All of the sound effects, like the creaky floorboards and doors, suddenly become louder and everyone starts moving really slowly. If they hear a noise, they'll turn their head as slow as possible. Cue jump scare! Then it's back to daylight and everyone talking and moving naturally again. It kind of got annoying how predictable and telegraphed it was. It felt like two completely separate films. You've got the scary nighttime sections and the tensionless day scenes, and they don't blend together naturally at all. The horror parts don't come into play until quite a way into the film. The movie is more concerned about setting up the characters and their lives, which I appreciated. It's nice to see a filmmaker taking the time to develop the characters, even if it isn't pulled off to the highest level. The film opens to a strong start, but it fizzles out towards the end. It sets up a number of mysteries, but doesn't have the stamina to keep them going. As soon as it starts dealing out the answers, the whole film collapses in on itself with a bit of an underwhelming sigh. It builds anticipation and growing dread, but when it comes to the confrontations, it falls apart like a house of cards. I found myself not caring about the characters or the story as a whole. It would grab my attention 1 minute, only to lose me for another 10. It lacked the emotional depth that the film needed and tries to portray. For the most part, the jump scares weren't too bad. Of course, there were too many, and they were irritating, sure, but they were better than most of the stupid jump scare fests that Blumhouse puts out. One of the scares irritated me a lot. The characters act pretty consistently throughout, but at one point one of them defies all logic. If you get scared and something grabs your hand, don't you think it'd be a good idea to tell the rest of your family about it? No, sure, just keep it to yourself for no reason and put everyone else in danger. Makes perfect sense. The movie felt like it was jumping between genres. 1 minute it was a family drama, then it was a horror, then it morphs into a love story or a thriller. That's not to say a film can't blend different elements together, but here it was unsuccessful. There's also an attempt at a love triangle that felt very stale. For the most part, the film is competently made. It looks nice and the direction is mostly well done. It can build up suspense well, even if it ends up feeling anticlimactic. Still, if you're looking for a horror film to watch, I'd recommend Hereditary instead. If you've seen that, or are waiting for it to be released on Netflix or whatever, you could always try The Orphanage, which has a similar tone to The Secret of Marrowbone, but is a better, more interesting film. Or even try A Tale of Two Sisters. If you do end up watching The Secret of Marrowbone and find yourself enjoying it, I expect it's a film that rewards multiple viewings. Although I didn't really like the film, I do think they put a lot of effort into it, which is to be commended at the very least. I feel bad for not liking it more. The individual parts of the film are nearly all solid. It has all the right ingredients, but it just doesn't come out of the oven like that perfect lasagna you imagined. I do hope the director goes on to future projects, and I'd like to see what he does. With a number of plots, subplots and non-linear editing, the whole film felt meandering, and I can see a lot of people finding the time hopping a bit exhausting. I'd give this a 4 out of 10. Better luck next time.
When you've got a pal, he's your friend for good. You look after each other like best friends should. There are times of laughter, times you've been away. He's pleased to see you when you're home to stay.
All dogs love Marrowbone, so give your best friend Pal dog food. The Marrowbone he loves, plus all the meaty goodness he really needs.
So give him Pal, 'cause he's your best friend.